Good morning, everyone. This is Michael Ellis. I'm the publisher of Rural Lifestyle Dealer Magazine. Welcome to this morning's webinar with Sara Hey of Bob Clements International. Now, one of the biggest pain points for all business owners is finding, interviewing, and hiring key employees for their business. With that in mind, Sara this morning is going to walk you through the 7 steps for finding and hiring employees and the right employees. Now, before we turn the controls over to Sara, we've got a couple of quick housekeeping items. On your screen, you're going to notice a white arrow in an orange box. You can click on that and choose question to open up a question field, and that allows you to submit questions at any time throughout the presentation. At the end of the presentation, time permitting, we're going to look to answer as many questions as possible. But if we don't get to all of them, we're going to send those remaining questions home with Sara, and she'll take care of answering them, and we'll post those up on the website along with an archived video replay of the webinar, so you can go back and review it at your leisure. Now, if for any reason your connection or our connection should fail at some point, and it looks like the webinar has been interrupted, just go back to the email you received telling you how to join the webinar, and you can re-enter that way. Now with that, I think we're going to be ready to roll here. So thanks again for joining us. We're going to turn everything over to Sara. Good morning, Sara.
Good morning. Thanks, Michael. We are so excited to be here with all of you guys today. We love working with Rural Lifestyle Dealer Magazine. You know, it has just been such a great partnership over the last few years, and we are just thrilled to continue that over this upcoming year. So awesome. Well, thank you. As Michael said, my name is Sara Hey, and I am with Bob Clements International. I have been full-time with BCI for about 5 years now, and you know, we are a family business just like so many of you are. So I am Bob's daughter. And if you would have asked me probably 6 years ago if I would have ever in a million years joined the family business, I would have said, heck no, right? But I have been around this all of my life, and I have come to love working with dealers. You know, there is no greater group of people, I believe, on this earth than the dealers that we work with. And so it is a joy and a privilege to be able to sit here with you guys today and just walk through how do you find, interview, and hire key employees. So I oversee our operations and development. And, you know, over the years, as we've worked through not only our own hiring process, and we've made so many mistakes with our own hiring process, but walking through these processes with dealers, we have just come to find, you know, you are in the trenches with this. Your money is tight, your time is tight, and the importance of having the right person in place is crucial to the success of your business. And so through the years and through our mess ups, we have come up with our 7 steps for finding and hiring the right people. And you know, as we walk through these, if you have questions, like Michael said, be sure to submit those and we'll answer that. But I'm excited to get started. So, you know, why do we care about hiring at BCI? You know, we're parts and service and sales. We do a lot of that. So why are we taking time and talking about finding and hiring key employees? You know, we have heard your horror story after horror story after horror story. Our team is in about 200 dealerships a year physically, and we probably work with about 2,000 dealers throughout the course of the year through our dealer success groups or other online things. So we are hearing your horror story after horror story. So that's why we care. But the other thing is, we talk about processes over and over and over again in service, parts, and sales. But the same thing rings true for finding and hiring employees. Processes matter, right? And in service and parts and sales, we talk about how you're walking over hundreds of thousands of dollars every year by not having the right processes in place. And we just keep coming back to the fact that by not having the right processes in place in your hiring, you are walking over hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, so much so that I recently read this book. Well, it's been a few years now, by this man, and the book is called Hiring Smart. I highly recommend it. I believe it's actually out of print, so you may have to search a little bit for it at this point. But he said in this book, if you make a hiring mistake and you recognize and rectify the situation within 6 months, the cost of replacing that employee is 2.5 times the person's annual salary. Okay, so let's break that down. You make a hiring mistake. Okay, who's been there? All of us, right? We've all made a hiring mistake. And we recognize and fix the situation within 6 months. So many times we let this go on way longer than 6 months. I know we've been in that spot where we say, you know what, they're going to change. You know what, we just need to change the job a little. But if we recognize it and fix it in 6 months, the cost of replacing that employee is 2.5 times the person's annual salary. You know, and I know annual salaries are going to vary by region, but I did a quick search on my friend Google, and they said that the average annual salary for someone in the United States is $50,000 a year. And I know that may not be true where you're at, but average across the US, 50 grand a year. Okay, so what does that look like if we use this formula? If we take $50,000 times 2.5%, we've got $125,000 that we have spent because we hired the wrong person and we let it go on just for 6 months. All right, and I know you're probably like, Sarah, okay, 2.5 times, that seems a little excessive. How are we there with that number? There's a lot of factors that play into this. First, right, your time trying to find this employee, the time training this employee, the person's actual salary, the benefits, insurance, taxes, all of these things, the cost of your time to replace this employee, their training, all of this goes in to this 2.5% of the $50,000, right? Like, that's serious money that we're walking over when we don't have processes in place for hiring employees. Like, holy smokes, I don't know about where you're at, but $125,000 in Kansas City, where BCI is located, is a lot of money. You know, so I wanted to break it down just another step further and say, let's talk about a few things that actually cost $125,000, right? Gas for 100 years. Like, you could literally fuel your car for 100 years with the amount of $125,000. So the cost of that hire for 6 months. You could buy 10,000 pizzas. I was talking to my husband about this, and he said he would be thrilled to have 10,000 pizzas, right? All back to his college days, when that's pretty much, I'm sure they probably went through about 10,000 pizzas. But so for $125,000, you could buy over 10,000 pizzas. You could get 3 4-year college degrees, right? Like, 3 of those people sitting in that picture could be your children or yourself. I'm just saying, that's a lot of college degrees, and that's at a public university. Finally, this island in Fiji is legitimately for sale for $125,000. Now, if you do decide to forgo the bad hire and buy this island, let me know. I'd be happy to come test it out with you. So, you know, so it really matters how we're spending our money, how we're putting our time and energy towards this hiring process, because you're walking over hundreds of thousands of dollars through this process. That's important. All right, so what does the hiring process look like at BCI? This process has been developed because, like I said before, we have screwed this up so many times, and we realize the importance of having a process in place. So we'll go over these each really briefly now, but we'll break them down as we go through the webinar. First, we're going to benchmark the job and create a job description for this position, right? We're going to find our candidates, easier said than done a lot of the times. We're going to have our candidates do personality assessments. We'll complete an initial interview. We're calling our references. We'll have our in-person interview after that. And then 7, we're going to do our final interview and make an offer. So we're benchmarking the job and doing a job description, finding candidates. We're going to do our personality assessment, initial interview. 5 is call references. 6, in-person interview. And then our 7th is our final interview and making an offer. All right, so let's dive into our benchmarking the job. So job benchmarking, what is it and why does it matter? So job benchmarking does a few things. This is a point where, as a team, you work through and try to get everyone on the same page of what you're looking for in an employee, right? So we're trying to get everyone on the same page. This is also going to set expectations among your team, right? What are we asking this person to do? And it also is going to clarify what type of person you're exactly looking for. So I have these graphics over here. And just for fun, I ask our team at BCI, anyone who works with dealers in a dealership on a regular basis, to go ahead and benchmark for me what they thought a parts counter person should be. All right, so we have Bob up in the left-hand corner, right? And with his, every single one is different. There is a different expectation for a parts counter person from everyone at BCI. We've got Bob's different than Brian's, Jeff is different than Jim's, and they're all different. So it's important, even for these positions that you think are no-brainers, that you have benchmarks in place so that we have expectations set among your team. It's so important. All right, so then our job description. I have this little picture here and it says, it's a brand new position and we're still trying to figure out your duties. So I won't be able to tell you how you're doing it wrong for a few weeks. Like, how many of us have been in this position where we said, okay, we need a warm body in here, but I don't exactly know what we need you to do, right? That's not how we want anyone to start. So we are going to create a job description. We have all of the job descriptions you basically need in our dealer toolbox on our website. But our important thing that we want to focus on is that they need to be clarifying. So what exactly are you expecting from this person in this position, which we just clarified as a team during our benchmarking. We want them to be conversational and engaging, right? We want it to be for them to understand what it is and who we are as a company through this. They're going to be honest. We're going to have these job descriptions be honest, right? We're not going to say, oh, you will only be standing 2 hours a day when they're actually a parts counter person and they'll be standing 8 hours a day. We need this to be an honest thing. And then we are going to convey what our company's personality is. So at BCI, we recently just, we're in the process of hiring a new administrative assistant. And if you have been around BCI for any amount of time, you know we are a sassy bunch of people. We are sassy. And so as we do our job descriptions as a team, it's important that they understand what they're getting into. I mean, so much so that we have sassy, sarcastic quotes all over our wall. And that's just who we are as a team. If somebody isn't going to be a good fit in that, I'd rather them know as they're reading our job description than for us to get down our hiring process and say, holy smokes, I don't think I can work in such a sarcastic environment, right? So by having a job description that meets each of these things, we are going to be able to start weeding out people from the get-go, which is saving us time, energy, and money. All right, finding candidates. This is a challenge, isn't it? I know we hear from dealers all the time. This is the biggest hurdle. So we've got our traditional ways. These are the ways that many people are constantly using. We've got Craigslist and newspapers, job recruiter sites. You know, we use a few different ones and we've seen a lot of success. Indeed is one that we typically use. It's a great option for a free job posting. If you want to spend a little money, ZipRecruiter is one I'd also recommend. We've had really great experience with that. It is a little expensive, but you get what you pay for with that. And then temp agencies. You know, I know depending on where you are in the country and what the situation is, that's always a place that if you are out of options, it's a great place to go. But let's talk about the non-traditional ways, right? So how about your current employees? I was reading an article just today, and it was saying that there's a major company in the United States that gets 80% of its new employees from recommendations from its current employees. You know, there's a few reasons why this really works well for companies, but one of them is your employee's name is on the line. They're not going to recommend somebody that they are worried about being a bad employee for you, right? And if you like your people that you already have in place, if you don't, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But if you like the people you have on your team currently, you'll find that people like people who are like themselves. So you're looking for a technician, for example. Ask your current technicians. People are around people who do the same profession, even if it's not in with your company specifically. They'll be around other technicians. They'll know where to look, and they'll like people and will be drawn to people who are like themselves. So that's a great way. You know, and we've even seen employers, as they're looking for people, offer a little spiff if somebody comes on and lasts a certain amount of time, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, to the employee who recommended them. So, I mean, I would say all of that is really a great way to find it. Social media. I would encourage you, as you are looking for new employees, to put your job description, right, which is clear, honest, fun, and engaging, and shows your company's personality, on your social media page, right? We do this for a few reasons. The reach that you get with social media is crazy. You know, you are able to get in front of everyone who already likes you And then you're able to have references from these people as well. I mean, when you can see that you have a connection with a loyal customer, with the person who just applied, you are able to have this great reference of somebody that you like and trust. It's all about unpacking baggage and understanding. I'd also like to say local colleges are a great place to look. You know, there's a lot that can go into this, but when we were hiring, it's probably been about 2 years ago now, we were hiring a person for marketing, and we were looking for someone. And so I went and set up a table at the local college, and just was looking for marketing majors. And I said, you know what, this is a position we're looking to fill part-time. And we had so many applicants of people who were trying to get their foot in the door and get some real experience for marketing. And so I would encourage you to do the same thing. Go to the college, you know, it may be a parts counter person, whatever it is that you need, go to a local college and check that out. Hiring open houses, you know, while there may not be a person who's coming in and looking for a tech position at a hiring open house, you never know who you're going to run into. You never know if his wife is going to be there, or grandma or aunt, and they say, you know what, I ran into this dealership and it looks great. There is a position open for you. It's all about keeping your face and name in front of all of these people. One of the most interesting ways that we've talked to dealers and heard about are using online forums, right? So we are talking about forums for, like, if you are looking for a technician, that's an easy one to go to. But if we're looking for a technician and we are saying, let's see, we are going to go to a auto forum and say, we're looking for someone, you may not be interested, and I don't know where you are with this job hunt, but if you ever do become interested, I'd love to talk to you. You already know they're technically inclined and have a base knowledge because they're on this forum. So it's a great place to just start putting feelers out. And then other places you do business, right? This is one of my favorite ways, I would say, to do it, because we all have places that we visit. I was recently in the market for a new car. And so as I was shopping for this car, I had a few really bad salespeople and I had a few really great salespeople. But the idea is that as you're having these conversations, you're engaging in another conversation that you say, you know what, I know that you may not be interested and you're not looking. And we say, fingers crossed, we actually hope you are. But if you ever change your mind and you're looking for something different, give me a call. Like, this is not getting you married to this person and saying you're hiring them today. It just puts you up for the first part of this conversation, that you are the first place they are going to go when they're ready to look for something different. And that's what this is all about. We're working on marketing our dealership for best potential candidates that we can find. We want to find people who are excited to work with us and are excited to be a part of our team. You know, and the one thing that we say over and over and over again at our office is, it's important to hire low and grow. And what do we mean by that, right? We are going to always be looking to hire a low-level employee, like a service coordinator, right, that we're going to move into a tech position. So I would say that's a really important thing to keep in mind as well. So we're hiring low and growing. And I know you may be in this position where you need a B-level technician today, so you may not have that time as an option. But as you move out of season, it's important to keep in mind your service coordinator will be your next B-level technician. So we're looking for a low-level skill person that we can grow into a higher skill level. So that's some of the ways we're going to be finding our candidates. All right, so personality assessments. And I'm gonna need you guys to hang with me. This is an interactive part of this, and I need you guys to just hang with me with this. But I need you to mentally go back to 6th grade PE class. All right, are we there? It's a little painful, I know. We've got our awkward gym change, like changing into our gym clothes. We've got our braces on and our glasses. We are all looking fine. We are looking fine. So we are in 6th grade, 8th grade, wherever you want to be, middle school PE class, and it is dodgeball day. All right, we all mentally there? I know it's painful, but just hang with me. All right, so there are going to be 4 different groups of people that we are going to fall into in regards to our middle school PE class. All right, so in your head, think about this. What group are you in? All right, group 1, are you the one who's standing in the middle of the floor, the gym floor, talking to your group of friends? Group 2, are you standing close to the wall as physically possible? Group 3, you're at the front line throwing the ball as hard as you can? Or 4, are you the one that comes up with a plan to follow and win, and you're going to follow that at all costs? So, okay, number 1, you're the person who's standing in the middle of the floor talking to all your friends. 2, you're standing too close to the wall as physically possible. 3, you're the one who's up at the front line, ready to throw the ball as hard as you can. Or 4, you're the one who came up with the plan to win, and you're following it at all costs. All right, so these different things are going to tell us a lot about ourselves. Group 1. So if you are the person who is standing in the middle of the floor talking to all of your friends, this is you. All right, you're a high I or influencer personality, and you're most like a dolphin, right? Like a dolphin is friendly, everybody loves the dolphin, right? But you are shaping your environment by influencing and persuading others. And you are most motivated by approval and praise. This person would be a great person who's greeting customers as they come in. That everybody loves this person. They're friendly, they're outgoing, and they're a wonderful, fun person to be around. You want your customers to come in and have a conversation with this person because they are going to have a positive experience. Okay, so this is called the influencer personality. Every personality is going to have strengths and weaknesses. That's just part of it. So some of the strengths that come with the influencer personality are they're optimistic, right? They have a desire to help others, and they're verbally articulate. You love this person to be your first person that greets customers as they come in. Some of the weaknesses, though, we're overestimating results, acting impulsively, and overcommitting. So with each one of these, we're going to have a phrase that we're going to say, and we're going to just work on this together because every personality is going to clash with these other personalities in some way. So with the high I personality, you're the person who probably stops and wants to tell everybody about your weekend or show them the latest cat video you saw on YouTube. And all of the other personalities are not going to be open and receptive to that. So the words you're going to say as a high I or influencer personality is, are you busy? Right? Everybody wants to stop what they're doing to talk about the newest place that you went over the weekend. Not everybody's in that mood. So you're going to say, before you just interrupt someone, are you busy? And it's going to solve a lot of your problems. All right, group 2. So this is the group that's standing as close to the wall as physically possible. You are a high S or a steady personality, and you're very much like a golden retriever, right? You want to get your task completed with as little conflict as possible. You don't want conflict, and you're motivated by safety and security, right? A person who would be this type of person would be a great technician, right? A high S personality would be a great technician. They want to get their task completed with as little conflict as possible. So as you're hiring technicians, this is a person you want to be a high S. All right, so our strengths for a high S personality, they're loyal, they're very loyal, they're consistent, and they love to perform established work patterns, right? So all of those things would be great in a technician. The weaknesses, sometimes there's trouble meeting deadlines, right? Procrastinating and resisting change. So if you are in this group, what you're going to be saying to other people is, I'm open to your ideas, right? Like if you know anybody who's a high S, you know they are not open. They don't want the change. They don't want conflict. They don't want to do something new. But in order to get along with other people and understand other people's point of view, they have to be open to their ideas. All right, group 3. All right, the people who are standing at the front line, throwing the ball as hard as physically possible. We're going to have a real talk here because I know I can have this with you and because I am with you, right? This is my personality and we're going to just be straight. Sometimes high Ds drivers, when we make a decision, it's like an atomic bomb going off, right? We need the high S and the high I people to come alongside us and pick up the mess that we've created. But as a driver, we want to get things done and we don't care about the ramifications or the shrapnel in the process, right? And the ways that we're motivated is by accomplishing new challenges and setting and achieving our goals. You hate to lose, right? You want to just go in, kill the task, and move on to the next thing. Managers are typically a high D personality. Owners of a dealership or a business, high D personality. You want to go in, deal with the problem, kill it, and move on. You know, ER doctors are another example of a high D personality. You want your ER doctor to be a high D, right? They want to go in, fix it as fast as they can, and move on to the next thing. That's important in an ER doctor. So high D, you're my people. We can have this conversation. So strengths. High Ds take charge, right? The drivers take charge. There are quick decisions made, and they're persistent. Like, you're all probably in your head laughing and saying, oh, that's me, or that's somebody I know. All right, the weaknesses, which are hard to believe that there are any for the high Ds, right? Am I right, high Ds? But sometimes we can come across as being impatient. Hard to believe. We're taking on too much, or we're too demanding of others. All right, Ds, so our phrase. This one's painful. I think it's mostly painful because this is me, and this is a phrase that I have to say often. But our phrase is, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're probably like looking at the person next to you going, yeah, you need to be working on saying that to me, please, right? We have one guy in our office, Jim. I don't know, many of you probably know Jim, but he's a high D personality. And often before he even says anything, he says, before I say this, I need to say, I'm sorry, right? He knows that in order to work with these other personality types, I'm sorry has to come out, and you need to be able to say that and mean it, right? But I know a lot of times you're going, oh, I don't actually mean it. But if that means I can work with other personalities, that's important. All right. Last but not least, the people who have come up with a plan to win, and you're going to follow that at all costs. You're our high C or our compliant personality type. This person gathers, criticizes, and tests information, and then comes up with the best plan. And you're motivated by information and logic. So you are most like an Al. You are wise, you're thoughtful, and you don't act on a whim. All right, so your strengths, you're orderly, you're thorough, and analytic. Some of the weaknesses could be picky, too detailed, and too cautious. You know, a person that you would want in your dealership who is a high C person is someone doing your parts inventory, right? If you're going to need somebody who's very thorough and who's too cautious or too detailed, you want that person doing your parts inventory. So the phrase for high Cs is equally as challenging as the other ones, but their phrase is, I trust you. Right? No, they don't actually trust you, right? You haven't thought through the details. You have not been orderly with this. You are undercautious and you are not detailed enough. They don't actually trust you. But in order to work with different personality types, it's important that they start conveying that they do actually trust you. So why does this matter? You know, I think there's a lot of reasons why this matters, but as you're working through hiring new employees, it's important to understand how personality types are going to go together and how they're going to mesh, and how, if there's going to be conflict, how you're going to deal with that. So I want to share a quick story. So my husband and I, a few months ago, were both up ready for new phones. And so obviously, like all good people do, we were going to buy our Apple iPhones. None of those Android madness here. But we were going to buy our Apple iPhones. And this was right before the iPhone 7 came out. So I looked at this. I'm a high D, high I personality. And I look at it and I say, okay, I want the 7 Plus. The biggest decision I need to make about this is what color do I want it in. My husband, on the other hand, is a high S, high C personality. So he is very thoughtful, very thorough. And he said, well, I'm going to have the iPhone 6 or the 6S, which are just two models different, right? And they're the older version. He said, because I don't know what's going to happen with the 7. It's not been tested, right? So he legitimately makes a spreadsheet of the pros and cons of the iPhone 6 versus the iPhone 6S. Like crazy in my mind. To him, it made all the sense in the world. But if we didn't understand how our personalities interact together, we would be at conflict a lot. Understanding that he needs to be thorough and analytical, and he understanding that I need to be a quick decision maker, has helped us a lot. And the same is going to go true for your employees. One other thing on personality assessments. All of you, we are going to go ahead and send out a complimentary link for you to take a personality assessment. If you want, it's about an $85 value. And we'd love to go ahead and just send that out. And then this is like a whole nother topic for another day. And Natalie and I from my office are going to be doing a Facebook Live thing tomorrow. If you want to dig into this deeper, there is so much more to be said about this. So join us tomorrow. But we'll go ahead and just send out a personality assessment for everyone on this webinar. But so this matters. And it really matters on how you engage and interact with your employees. All right, so the initial interview. First, I'd like to draw your attention to the picture, which is my husband with his new phone. I'm just kidding, but I do like to pick on him quite a bit for that. So our initial interview, we're gonna find out a few things. First, does the person have the ability to do the job? Like, that's what we wanna know. Do they have a desire to make my company part of their lives? And will they fit into the team we currently have in place? Right, so there's a few logistical things I want you to think about as you're doing your initial interview. First, we don't want this to be a super long interview. This is not something that we're going to have be a 45-minute phone call. It's all going to happen over the phone. And I'd encourage you to give your candidate a call around 12 o'clock. There's a few reasons we're going to do this around 12 o'clock. Number one, if they're working at another job, they're typically on lunch break, right? So they can answer their phone and have a conversation. If they're not at another job, if it sounds like they just woke up, that's a bad sign. We are not interested in someone who is not up before noon, right? Like, I don't know if any shops or any businesses that open up after noon. So we want to know that they're awake, they're active, and they're alert by noon. So we're going to ask them to do a few things with this. Everyone at this stage, at this stage of the interview process, so the initial interview, completes a personality assessment for our team. And we look at that in comparison to the job benchmark we have put in place at the beginning. If they don't match the job benchmark, they're out, right? We have set this level with our company that if you don't match the job benchmark, you're not even in the pool anymore, because you're not going to fill the need that we have in our company. And I would encourage you to do the same. Go back to this job benchmark that everyone agreed on, everybody was in agreement on, and we are going to look at this person's personality in comparison to that. So does the person have the ability to do the job? Can they actually do what they're saying they can do? If they are applying for a technician position and they say they're an A-level tech, do we know they can actually do this? We're going to ask them to take some tests. We're going to have them do their personality assessment, and we're going to make sure they can actually do the job. Do they have a desire to make the company part of their lives? They are going to be around you more than they are around their spouse and family. And I hope that they took some time deciding on their spouse before they got married to them, right? So they need to be sure that being part of your company is something that they are excited about and they want to do long term, right? Third, will they fit into the team I have in place, right? This is what I was talking about earlier, of us being like a really sassy company. So are they going to be able to come into our culture and be comfortable with that? This call should not take a lot of time, and we're going to ask them to do something that they get back to us within 24 hours. So I mentioned before personality assessments. If you apply for a job at BCI, you have 24 hours to do your personality assessment. If you don't get that done in 24 hours, they can't follow through. This person can't follow through, and we're not interested in them. And it also just helps us understand that they have a continued interest in this position. All right, so that's our initial interview. All right, next we're going to call references. At the beginning, we were talking about the cost of hiring a bad hire, and that was $125,000 on average. Now, my question for you is, if you were to go and purchase a new home and you were going to spend $125,000 on it, would you take time and call and have a home inspection done? Most likely your answer is yes. Yes, you would call and have a home inspection done for $125,000 purchase. So that's what calling references is for us. Okay, so these are the things. This is a list of questions that I would encourage you to ask. I know sometimes you get on the phone and you say, oh, I don't want to call the reference. It takes too much time. I don't even know what to ask them. And can they even answer the question? So a few things with this. First, we are going to ask for 5 personal references. All right, sure, we can get a few work references as well, but what we're really interested in is 5 personal references. We do this for a few reasons. Number one, a lot of times their past work experience, they can't tell you really anything legally about this person. So they're really not a whole lot of help to us. But so personal references, though, are able to give you an idea of how this person really acts in different situations. The reason we asked for 5 is because the first one's going to be grandma, then Aunt Jane, and then cousin Sammy. When you get to 4 and 5, you've really got to start thinking about it a little bit harder. So we're going to ask them questions like this. What are the candidate's strengths and weaknesses, right? How did you work with the candidate? Was the candidate late frequently? You know, as you're talking to these personal references, you'll find someone who was on PTA at the school with this person, or you'll find someone who worked side by side with them in another job, but that wasn't their employer. So they can sit here and say, you know what, Sally was late almost every time we had a PTA meeting. That's good information to know. What was the candidate's biggest accomplishment? How well does the candidate get along with others? And how does the candidate deal with conflict? Give me an example of time there was conflict and how did they deal with it, right? These are important things to know, and they're worth your time to save $125,000 by not understanding what you get. Your job as an interviewer, someone finding a new employee, is to be a detective. Everybody has baggage, like that's just part of it, but your job is to uncover that baggage and really understand who you're bringing on your team. All right, so we're all calling references, we're saving $125,000 in our pocket, and we're taking that time and that energy to do that. All right, next, so we've gone through all of these processes and we are still getting the green light. We like this person and it's all checking out well. We are going to go to our in-person interview next. And there are a lot of questions you can ask as you go through your actual in-person interview, but I'm going to hit on 3 questions that we like as a team that are just a little bit different. First, your blank check question. So the question you're going to ask is that you're going to sit down, you're going to have a legal pad in front of you and a pen, and you're going to say, so that I can get to know you better, why don't you take a moment and tell me about yourself? You can start anywhere and end anywhere. And that's what you're going to say. You're just going to say, so that I can get to know you better, why don't you take a moment and tell me about yourself? You can start anywhere and end anywhere. They will tell you things that you are legally not allowed to ask them. It's crazy. You're going to sit there and they're going to start telling you, well, you probably should know this, and this. But even more so, they're going to sit there and say, well, I am really involved in my church, right? You can't ask about religious affiliation. I have a wife and she has triplets on the way right now. Okay, can't ask about that either. But, I said I was really involved in my church, and every May I like to go on a mission trip for a month overseas. Okay, big red flag there, right? Right. Is there any business on this today that wants their employee, a technician per se, to go on a mission trip every May? Like, that is the worst possible time for someone to be out of the dealership, especially a technician. So in that moment, by asking this question, that they are not going to be a fit for your culture, right? They're going to be bitter the whole entire month of May, and that's the last thing you need, a bitter technician in May, right? Okay, so that is a really important question. You're going to learn more about this person you're interviewing through a question like this than you could ever legally ask them. So that's the blank check question. Next, the question I want you to ask is called the best friend question. This is a 3-part question, so we're going to walk through each portion of it together. Your question is going to be, other than your spouse or significant other, what's the first name of your best friend? Again, you're going to have your legal pad in front of you, your pen, and you are just going to stop talking at that point. All right, and if they say, well, my best friend, her name is Sara Hey, I want you to have a red flag go up in your head. You ask for their first name. However, if they say their best friend's name is Sara Hey, they have excellent taste in friends. You probably should continue on. All right, the next part of the question is, of all of your friends, why did you pick that person? Again, this is an open-ended question where they are going to tell you things that you could never legally ask them. They are going to say, you know what, Sarah was with me and stayed with me through a really hard time of life where I went through X, Y, and Z, right? You know, where I struggled with this medical condition, where I did any of these things that are really important information to have, right? We're detectives, we're trying to uncover baggage. Everybody has it, we're just trying to uncover it. So we're understanding more about this person, but you could never actually ask them these questions. All right, so we've asked, what's the first name of your best friend? Of all the people, why did you pick that person? And 3, what 5 adjectives would that person use to describe you? All right, so this is a really interesting question. It's going to tell us a few things. First, do they know what an adjective is? Did they pay attention in 8th grade and know how to use an adjective, right? So that's first part. The second part is when they give you these adjectives, they are actually describing what they think about themselves, not what their friends think about them. Did you catch that? So the 5 adjectives that they give you that their friend would use to describe them is what they actually think about themselves. That's important information to know because that will be one of the best indicators of how they're going to really be when they come into the job. All right. And this question is simply, if we were to do a complete background check on you, is there anything that might come up in the background check that you'd like to share with me? So if we were going to do a complete background check on you, is there anything that might come up in the background check that you would like to share with me? Again, the information you get from this question, you could never legally ask, and is such important information to get. You know, and there's a few things I'd like to point out with this. Number 1, I encourage you all to do background checks on everyone that you get to this point. It's really important because so many of you, like us, are small family businesses. You have kids in and out. You need to know what your team is comprised, who your team is comprised of, right? It's really important. I was just talking with Jim in our office yesterday, and he was doing a background check with for a service manager for one of the dealers we work with. And as he pulled it up, he found out that this service manager they were getting ready to hire was a registered sex offender, and he did 5 years for solicitation with a minor. That is information you need to know. And it's important that you do this with everyone who gets to this process. Because if you're going to have your children or grandchildren around your employees, it's important to know and do your due diligence. So I harping on this for a little bit, but it's really important that you take that step and understand where people are coming from. All right, so our final interview. This is the last piece of our interview process, but this is an interesting one. I encourage you, at this point, we have gone through all of the steps. We know what we're looking for. We found the people who match what we're looking for based on our job benchmarking, and they're a good fit with our team. We like them. They've answered their interview questions, and we're excited about them and their ability to do the job. All right, so we're going to get to the final interview stage, and at this point, we're probably only going to have 1 or 2 people left in our pool. And there's going to be a few things. We're going to ask clarifying questions about their references. So when we ask Sally's friend who works on the PTA with her about the project she was working on, we're going to ask clarifying questions about that project. We said, oh, we talked with your friend Betty, Sally, and she said you worked on this project together and that this was an issue that popped up, but you really did a great job on this. Could you tell me more about that project? Right? We are really trying to make sure that we understand the pros and cons of this person. We want to answer their questions. Like I said before, we are getting ready to be around these people more than they are around their family and spouse. They should have some questions, whether it's about medical insurance, whether it's about vacation policy, whether it's about uniforms, whatever it is, there should be some questions and you need to be ready to answer them. And lastly, we're going to have a compensation package ready to discuss, and we're going to be ready to make an offer with them. If they're at this point, we're in, right? We're ready to go as long as this interview goes good. A few other quick notes about the final interview. I'd encourage you to do this offsite somewhere. It's about having them let their guard down. You want to see them when they're not sitting in your office across from you, trying to have a front on, right? So maybe meet them at a restaurant for lunch or at a coffee shop and answer these questions, get to know them, be the detective before you make your final decision, right? So again, all of this is so important. There's so many aspects to this and so many reasons why it's important to take our time and go through this process. But this, like any other process in your business, is a process, and there are steps that you can follow and make sure that you are bringing the right person onto your team. All right, questions. Michael, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we sure do. Thanks, Sarah. And this is actually really timely for us too, because we're growing our team at Rural Lifestyle Dealer and Lester Media. So you gave us a lot of good tools here that we can input into our process
Excellent.
right now. So thanks for that.
Of course.
Let's start here. Someone submitted that recruiters are contacting them daily, but the candidates they've interviewed have not impressed them, and they're a little afraid of the finder's fee. So, what are your opinions on recruiters?
Yeah, you know what, Bob and I were just talking about this morning because there's been a lot of information about recruiters out, and so I would say there's a few things I'd like to say about recruiters. First off, if you are out of luck and you don't have any other options, a recruiter is not a bad thing. It's not like a scary thing that you need to be terrified of, but obviously you want good candidates. And depending on the recruiter, the fee typically would be between 20% and 30% of the person's first yearly salary. So that's a big fee. And you own this person after 90 days. So as long as they stay with you, typically, I mean, every recruiter is different, but as long as they stay with you for 90 days, that you own them, and they could leave at day 91 and you would be out 20 to 30% of their annual salary on top of losing that employee. So it depends. Like all things, it really depends. If you're in a place where they have a person that you're looking for and you have no one else in the pool, it's not a terrible option, but there is a hefty fee with it, and it's something you have to think through pretty deeply before you commit.
Great. All right, here's another one. This one comes from someone in an HR role who's presumably sitting in on the webinar today because everybody else is too busy to do so. So they're wondering, how do they get the buy-in from the folks on the front line, the ones doing the selection, the interviewing, and the hiring? How do they convey that message?
Yeah, there's a few things to think about. Number one, start with job benchmarking. Have everybody sit down together and come to an agreement of what exactly you're looking for. If you can start with that base layer of understanding exactly the personality type you're looking for, what they're going to be doing, and having clear expectations on them, the rest of the process will be pretty seamless because everybody is on the same playing field. If you were to start and say everybody has a different understanding of what this person's going to do, it's hard to go through this process because nobody can come to agreement. But when you have that base together, it really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I would think that getting the buy-in would be pretty critical, but just turning it on them and saying you're going to be working with this person day in and day out, so you're going to want to have a say in the process.
That's exactly right, Michael. That's exactly right.
Here's someone who's hiring for attitude more than aptitude due to a shortage of skilled applicants. What sort of questions would you recommend that are suited for getting at attitude?
Yeah, I would ask a lot of behavioral questions. Explain a time to me where you failed at something, right? And I don't want you to ask, and how did you deal with that? I just want you to leave it at that. Because by asking that question, you will see what their attitude is. So we're asking lots of behavioral questions at that point. But I read an article just the other day again about Southwest and how they hire, and they always say you can train skill, but you can't train attitude. And that is so true and so important in so many ways. However, I would like to say I hope Southwest hires skill for pilots rather than just attitude, because a pilot skill is pretty important to me.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there. Here's a fairly specific question to hiring techs. How
Okay.
can you be sure that when hiring a tech that they're going to be able to do the job once they get in there?
Excellent question. So as we talked about our initial interview and asking them to complete a task to help understand their skill level, that's where we're going to do this. We're going to ask them, I know there are a new number of organizations out there that have a skill aptitude test for technicians. I am going to make sure that they are able to do this and come across as, if we're looking for a B-level tech, that they come up as a B-level tech on this. So I would say, talk with your local associations. I know they have lots of resources. If you can't get it through that, shoot us an email and we'll get you hooked up. But there are lots of things that you can have potential technicians do to make sure they actually can do what they're saying they're going to do.
That's pretty critical.
Absolutely.
I think this one speaks a little bit kind of to the blank check questions that you brought up before. And I find this a very interesting question. Is it legal to not hire someone because they smoke?
We were talking about this just the other day again in our office, and it depends on the state. Honestly, some states, yes, it is legal to not hire them because they smoke. However, the way that we run shops and dealerships in general is, we view a smoke, like a cigarette, just as dangerous as a cell phone, right? They both are dangerous in a shop and they both are time wasters. So if someone does smoke, they are able to do it on their breaks. And we say we're always a non-smoking facility, so we provide a spot outside of the dealership where they can smoke, but so they can do it on their break or their lunch. But other than that, we require them to be there. So it's important to have this in your employee handbook. That's crucial. But it depends on your state if you're actually allowed legally to not hire someone because they do smoke.
Okay. Let's see here. Lots of questions about hiring technicians. I know that's a real hot button for people.
Sure.
And you already addressed that a little bit. What can you share your thoughts on one of the things we're hearing more and more about is maintaining a strong bench, so to speak, by getting recommendations from staff and people that we know. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. As we were talking about finding candidates, I think one important thing to keep in mind is that we are constantly marketing ourselves as a dealership, as a place that people want to come work, right? And so as you develop that, there are ways that you're just going to start having people, you're going to have people in the hopper ready to go. And when the timing's right, it will all work out. That's how we run our organization and our hiring. We're always having conversations with people that we feel like might be a good fit on the team. And while it may not be the right time for either of us, the timing always tends to work out with that. So I would say, just constantly view your dealership and as you're marketing your dealership for potential employees, and that will take a lot of that stress away.
Sure, and I think maintaining that strong bench can also help avoid a situation where you have to make a panic hire, so to speak.
Absolutely. And the last thing we want to do is just bring in another warm body who's not going to be a good fit on our team. That costs us so much time and so much money.
Right. Where would you say salespeople fit into the personality assessments?
It depends on what type of salesperson they are. If they're an inside salesperson, an S and a C person would be a really great person at that. If they're an outside salesperson, you're going to want someone who's a D and an I personality, someone who's not afraid of rejection, right? Who can just keep grinding at it. And Bob always talks about there's the hunters and the gatherers. And so understanding what position you're specifically looking for. Your hunters, your D and I personalities, those are going to be your hunters, your outside ones, looking for new business, on the move for that. If you're looking for a gatherer, an S or a C would be really great for that because they're the ones who are continually maintaining those relationships and are keeping your customers feeling that warm, friendly feeling.
Got it. Do you have recommendations for programs, aptitude tests that are part of the hiring process? Good resources that you've seen used?
Yeah. Like I was saying, I know for technicians specifically, there are a lot of them, and I don't have the link right off the top of my head. But if we'll send that out, Michael, as we send out the assessment link. But we'll make sure people get that as well for the technicians. Other than that, we use the personality assessments. As we do that, we have one that's specifically for salespeople so that we can see where their sales skills are in relationship to the averages of people. So we know what we're getting. Like I said before, our job is to be a detective. And that's what these help us do, to dig down and be a detective.
Perfect. Well, that's all the questions we've had submitted. If anything else pops up with anybody, feel free to email them into us and we'll pass them along to Sara. But thanks so much for everybody for taking the time this morning with us. And thanks to Sara for another great presentation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michael. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.